now next, while I'm gone, so anybody who wants to go to Rabbi Levinger should go to Rabbi Levinger. If you guys want to sit and just learn B'chavrusa, so just learn B'chavrusa. I don't think Rabbi Kaplan has a shir. Yeshiva is leaving today. What do you say, Doc? Josh is leaving. How's that for painful, huh?
I knew that was coming. I taught them. Yeah, well, he's made a lot of progress. Amazing.
Yeah, he's a good kid. He's a good guy. Okay. So the last thing we saw was this amazing idea of the Mitzad Musar Avicha, which is Torah Shebechsav. So there are three matzahs, Mitzad, the three different levels of Geula that exist in Yetzias Mitzrayim before the Geula is internalized by the Yidden, meaning it comes into the fourth level, which is always the Makabel. Right? And the way to remember that is Yud Kei Vav Kei, just Kei Tataz Malchus, which is the Makabel of all of the Or of Yud Kei and Vav. Just generally the idea that Mashpi is 3 and Makabel is 4. That's just a general idea that you're running to Chassidus. Mitzad Teres Imechel. The fourth level is brought into revelation, just like there are Gimel Avis and Arba Imahos. And that's Yayin, because Yayin had a tam, Yayin has a taste, a geschmack. Yayin is the idea of something coming into Pneumius. Okay, therefore, Aleph it's wine, base it's 4. Okay, that's what the Rebbe taught us. So, I mean, that's an idea unto itself. And it's certainly an idea that if you want, you can say over in the Seder. Meaning it's certainly something I think the people you're sitting with will find interesting and enjoyable. Der Bir Hanal, this explanation, Zion, this explanation in Dem Tam from Gimel Matzahs, the reason for Gimel Matzahs, and this was all about Gimel Matzahs, right? Because this was based on the question of the Mordechai, where the Mordechai asked, why is it that we don't take 4 matzahs if there's 4 Lashonos of Geula? And what was the Mordechai's answer? Anybody remember the Mordechai's answer? Which the Rebbe said we still want to explain the more common explanation that the wine is corresponding to the 4 cups, the 4 Lashonos of Geula. What was the Mordechai's answer? Arba cases of Yeshua, that the 4 cups of wine represent the 4 different levels of salvation that are mentioned in Psukim by David HaMelech. Case Yeshua's Esau, the cup of salvation I will pick up. 4 times there's a notion of a case of Yeshua, so therefore the Arba cases of wine correspond to those 4 cases, therefore it's not shaykh to lechem, it's not shaykh to matzah at all. So there's no question if that's the source of the Arba cases. But Lamaisa, that most people, that's not the source of the Arba cases. And the Rebbe brought the Alter Rebbe who says Beferish and Shulchan Aruch that the source of the Arba cases is the union of that they correspond to the Dalil Sheinis Geula. So then the question comes back into state of existence. So then why not 4 matzahs? And that's what the Rebbe explained in the sicha. Matzah is not shaykh to 4, not shaykh to the 4th level. But we see something interesting about matzah. Der Bir Hanal in dem Tam from Gimel Matzahs nit oichas gives oit also a hasbara, an explanation in a davar tamua, in something that's wondrous, was man gefindt, that which a person finds benegea to matzah, relative to matzah. Their din is, and this is a Gemara that we learned in Gemara class, their din is as bola matzah yotza. Right, the Gemara says, bola matzah yotza. If a person swallows matzah without chewing it, and if you don't chew it, of course, you don't taste it. Right? He takes pieces of matzah, he puts it in his mouth, and he swallows them. So he's yotza the din of eating matzah. If he eats gzayis, obviously. Right? Bola madar lo yotza. If he ate madar that way, he's not yotza because you have to taste the bitterness of the madar. Okay? So that's a din. So that is in line with what we learned, that you don't have to taste matzah. Well, because matzah doesn't have a taste. Matzah is not about taste. Se is nit kein chiyuv zu margish sein tam matzah. There's no obligation to feel the taste of matzah. When oibnar se is given achilas matzah, and yet that's still called achilas matzah. Afilu derech blia, even by swallowing. This came up in Gemara class. The Breslever Chassid once told me that Rav Nachman of Breslev We know the Alter Rebbe got to a point where he didn't taste food, right? So there's a story with Shlomo of Karlin, that Shlomo of Karlin came to the Alter Rebbe and they were discussing something, so the people in the household of the Alter Rebbe were very excited. Shlomo of Karlin was a big tzaddik. So everybody wanted to take part in cooking food for the two tzaddikim, so they divided up the work, and they forgot to divide up putting the salt in the stew. And so everybody decided that they would put salt in the stew, right? So the stew was a little salty. So if Shlomo Karlan took a piece and put it, couldn't eat it, he was just too salty, so he put it down. And the Alter Rebbe just ate it without reacting. So if Shlomo Karlan, so the Alter Rebbe asked if Shlomo Karlan, what aren't you eating? He said, it's very salty. You didn't taste the salt. So the Alter Rebbe said to him that I've been working on not tasting food and I don't taste my food anymore. Okay, so in other words, to be mushat from Eilam Hazeh, it's not something, don't try this at home, okay? It's right? But that was the Alter Rebbe's avodah to not be involved in the physical world to the extent that he could limit that involvement. Okay, so Rav Shlomo of Karlin tasted the food. Rav Nachman of Breslov evidently wanted to do the same thing. He didn't want to be so meshuabad to his food. So evidently, at a certain point in life, he was cutting it into small pieces and swallowing it as little small pieces. But that, of course, did incredible damage to his digestive tract, because part of the juices that help us digest, I'm saying this in front of a doctor, so I feel sort of funny, but I mean, okay, what can I do? The part of the juices that help us digest the food are produced when we chew the food, right? So he ended up having all sorts of stomach troubles, and he stopped this experiment in trying not to taste his food. But that he did do that for a while. I guess it was probably based on this Gemara that he saw this and said, oh, that's an idea. Bala matzoh yatsa. Right? Because if you do that to matzoh, you're yatsa. Right? Is men yotzi yedei chevasa, even by just swallowing it. Masha'in came by mother, which we mentioned, right? The Gemara says that that's not the halacha in mother. Is men nit yetze ad yargish tam merirose befiv, until he feels the taste of the bitterness in his mouth. That's the Alter Rebbe explaining the Gemara that says bola mother lo yatsa. Or beliida, on the other hand, is there din? The din is mis nit yetze b'matzah b'vushelis. You're not yetze in matzah that was boiled. Oder afilu mit der matzah was hat sich geweikt in mei peres, or a matzah that was kneaded with fruit juice. Why? Weil afal pi shein tzarich sheyid, is the Alter Rebbe. That afal pi shein tzarich sheyitem tam matzah b'fiv, even though he doesn't have to taste the matzah in his mouth because he could swallow it. And yet there's a very interesting din. The matzah itself, tzarich yeba tam matzah. The matzah has to have a taste of matzah. That non-taste of matzah, that's the taste matzah has to have. Right? Now, I don't have to taste it because matzah is not a din in taste. And yet the matzah itself has to have the taste of matzah. Can't have another taste. Can't have a tam livui, a taste that accompanies it. So apple-flavored matzah or egg matzah covered in chocolate, which is what Dr. November remembers from his youth in Brooklyn, right? Yeah, but that was before Pesach. I mean, maybe people ate it on Pesach. I don't know. Shia batam matzah v'loy, and not sheyufag taima, that it's tam. What's yufag? It's in English. It's a Hebrew word. Brought in halacha a lot.
Absorb.
Weaken. Yufag is to weaken the taste. Right? V'loisha yufa, it comes out when you learn your Adaya, it'll come up. V'loisha yufag tamal yidei tamacheh. The taste will be weakened by another taste. Okay, so there's this anomaly in matzah. Mitzad echad, I don't have to taste it. Mitzad sheni, it has to have a taste. So now, how would you say that in Torah learning terms? Mitzad the gavra, there's no need for taste. Mitzad the person, there's no need for taste. Mitzad the cheftza, the object, it has to have the taste. It has to have a taste of matzah. But I don't have to taste that taste. The gavra, the person, doesn't have to taste that taste. But the cheftza, the object, has to have that taste. Right? And that distinction of gavra, cheftza is a distinction that's found a lot in brisker Torah, but the Rebbe talks about it a lot. The Rebbe uses that notion to explain a lot, and it's bechlal. completely Haguni. It's famous. It was made famous by Brisk, Hefze Gavra, right? Defining things in terms of the person doing it or the object within it with which it's being done. So here's a clear distinction between the Hefze and the Gavra. The Gavra, no tam. Hefze, tam, has to have a taste. Is nit muvan, it's not understood. The Mefarshim fragen, and the Mefarshim ask this question. Vibald is by Achilas Matzah, since by Achilas Matzah, for that zich nit as der Adam, it's not necessary that the Adam, the person, zal margish zain tam matzah, can feel the taste of matzah and experiences the taste of matzah. For vos darf die matzah atzma, therefore, why does the matzah itself, yes, haben tam matzah? Why does it require a tam matzah? Obvious problem. Vabir pnimi in them. So in footnote 40, the Rebbe says if you want to see the beer in Nigla, so look at the footnotes in the previous place, because it's a question brought by the Mefarshim. Right? So there are. Now the Rebbe is going to mention Gavra here, Gavra Hefzer. Right? Das was by mitzvah achilas matzah. That which by achilas matzah, muz nit zayin tam matzah. There doesn't have to be a taste of matzah. Is only mitzad dem Gavra. It's only mitzad the person. While by the Yidden, since by the Yidden is Geulas Mitzrayim, the Geula relative to Matzah, versus Gekumen Milamayla, which is coming from above, an Inyan in Velche ze haben nitatam, something in which they don't have a taste, right? That's not Matzah, that's what Matzah represents. Matzah represents that aspect of Geula where you and I haven't yet internalized it. Okay. So mitzad the Gavra, there's no taste, so I have to taste it. But mitzad the Geula itself, is there a Geula? Has the Geula happened?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is there any limitation to the Geula that's happened? Limitation. The Geula itself is a Geula. In Adarabah, where do we see, what did the Rebbe teach us in this sicha that shows us very, very clearly that the whole Geula is there? What do? We drink 4 cups of wine on Pesach, not on Shavuos. We drink 4 cups of wine on Pesach. We bring into Revelation the 4th level also on Pesach. Why? Because it's there. It just isn't. It's not necessarily expressed in us. So our unveiled on Pesach is to bring it into us. That's why do we do that? 4 levels of 4 cups of wine. But it's all there. So mitzad the Gavra, there's no taste. But mitzad the Hefza, the Geula itself has a tasty Geula, so to speak. We'll see what that means in Avodah also. So by us, there's no tam. Und der Riber, and therefore, there are 2 different ways in Yiddish to say therefore. Der Riber, which is very common, that's what we've had here, and also therefore. Right? Which is hard not to understand. And that's why your grandmother said it that way. Right? And the word mit is with in Yiddish, right? So that's why your grandparents said, are you coming with us? You would always say that, right? You coming with us? You always say mit, right? Just with, mit, they all mixed up. The whole W's were not so easy for people who came from Europe. You generally said a v, because there's no w. There's no w in Yiddish, no w in Hebrew. Right? What is the problem? Remember one of the stories that was just, one of those stories you remember when you're growing up. My parents' best friends, they had a dog, a Norwegian husky, this beautiful dog called Venny. I don't know why they called the thing Venny, but whatever, they called the dog Venny. So Mrs. Horn, who was the grandmother, who was a European mamish. So she said to my mother's friend, what kind of a name is Wenny? Oh. She called the dog Wenny. It's the only W anybody ever heard out of her mouth. What kind of a name is Wenny? So that actually happened, right? I mean, it's a line from a novel, but it actually happened. Mrs. Horn. It's the only time anybody ever heard her say a W. She was a real old-time European. What kind of a name? Und der Riber is blois muchrach achilas matzah, ba'ofen as the zalven and damu basar kipsada. Therefore, matzah has to be eaten in such a way that it becomes part of his flesh, and he has to eat it. There's a mitzvah of achilas matzah, and that means that the person becomes one with the matzah. As the geula zal nisatzem werden mit den etzem anigal, that the geula has to become one with the essence of the one being redeemed, right? But of course, that's going to take time. Ober lav davka as heich oichel yitam, but not necessarily the palate that's eating has to taste it. Lav davka as zal filen atam vano from tam mitzvah, from tam matzah. So it's not that he necessarily has to feel the taste of tam matzah. In other words, the Rebbe just said something very interesting based on what we learned before, right? The matzah itself represents geula. You and I have to eat the matzah. What does eating the matzah mean? Become one with the matzah, which means we become one with geula. But it still represents a level of the geula that I might not be feeling, I might not be experiencing. That doesn't mean I'm not one with it. It's happening to me and is defining my reality completely and totally, but I'm not experiencing that consciously. That's matzah. So I have to eat it. That means it's me. It becomes part of me, literally. But it's still matzah. It still has no tam, meaning I don't necessarily have to feel the tam, and that's why the halacha is bala matzah yatzah, that if I can swallow it without tasting it, I'm still yatzah. But it still became part of me just as much. So that's mitzad the gavra. The chefza is a chefza of geula. The gavra has to become one with the chefza of geula by eating it, but he doesn't necessarily have to feel it. Ober, mitzad the chefza, using that distinction, mitzad the object itself, Tzivui Hashem, the command of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mach the Metzias, creates a reality, the mitzvah's matzah, of the mitzvah of matzah. Mitzad dem Eibishter, in terms of it, the Eibishter's view of reality, is in der Geula gegeben geworden, der Koyach zu überstellen Yidden, right? In the Geula, it's given the power so that the Yidden, as they zalen nigel werden, can, as they are being redeemed, they become completely redeemed. Oich mitzad zer mitzias, also mitzad their reality from Tumas Mitzrayim. Meaning, what we said yesterday, the koyach of it all. The potential of this event is, and that means this is the true reality of this event. The true reality of this event is an event of geula. I might not be in a place yet where I'm experiencing that geula. And the Yidden weren't. And therefore we have this mitzvah called mitzvah's matzah. But through that mitzvah, the Yidden connect to the idea of geula, and the idea of geula, mitzad, what the Eibishter sees when he sees this event is a complete and total geula. And we've been completely taken out of Tumas Mitzrayim. So mitzad the cheftza, the object itself is completely pure. I might not have to relate to that, or I might not be ready to relate to that consciously yet. But the reality is that this object called matzah is an object of absolute geula. And that's from the Eibishter's point of view. And therefore, the object matzah atzma, the matzah itself, having a tam matzah. It has to have a taste of matzah. Because it's real geula. This is similar to the idea that you see in V'yadaita Mosque. When the Rebbe explains the hashpah of the mashpia to the makabel. When the mashpia is mashpia to the makabel, is the makabel necessarily understanding everything that the mashpia is saying? No. He doesn't understand the true depth of this idea yet. He's getting an idea, he's experiencing something, but he's only experiencing an external expression of this idea at this point. It's all there. And not only is it all there, right, the mitzad the mashpia is the idea the mashpia is giving has to be a true expression of the idea that exists in his seichel, in his intellect. The makabel isn't yet able to appreciate the true depth of this idea, but he's still getting the idea. He's still connected to the idea. So he's eating the matzah. He might not be conscious of the full effect and the full reality of this matzah, but the idea that's being given over to him, so to speak, the cheftza of the idea that the teacher is giving the student, the cheftza itself has to be a true proper, complete expression of the idea that the teacher wants to teach the student. It can't be another idea that's easier to understand in order to give it over to the student, but then the student's not getting what's in the head of the teacher. It has to be the thing itself. It has to be the idea itself. Oh, so too here. It has to be Geula itself. It is Geula itself. What's the Eibusher giving us? Geula. Are we in a place where we appreciate it yet? No, we haven't internalized it yet. Therefore, we eat matzah. But in matzah itself, there's this stira minei ubei. There's this internal contradiction. Mitzad echad, I haven't internalized it. Mitzad sheni, I eat it, which is the ultimate in internalization. What am I internalizing? Geula, the real thing. It's tam matzah. I might not feel it yet, but that's what it is. That's exactly what Yayin ends up revealing. But here the Rebbe is focusing on the matzah of it all. Matzah is geula. That's what it is. It's michla de hemnusa. It's the bread of emunah. The cheftza matzah atzma haben atam matzah. Weil die geula atzma, because the geula itself had gegeben, had sie das gedarf frier haben dem koyach. It's the geula itself is giving the yidden the ability, the potential. Uftam, for taste. It's all there. It's all in there. It's just hidden. So what has to be in there? Tam. There has to be a taste in the geula. I can't taste it yet, but it's in the geula. Mitzad the gavra, there's no taste. Mitzad the chefetzer, it has to have a taste because there is a taste there. The whole geula is being given. Again, and as we said earlier, so then how is that revealed? It's revealed through 4 cups of wine. Pesach, it's all there in Pesach. You don't have to wait till Shavuos. Der koyach uftam, nar lefoil, even though in actuality hat sich das aufgetan by Yidden, by Matan Torah, even though this actually happened by the Yidden in that year, in the year 2448, this all came into a state of revelation by Matan Torah. That's true. But what came into a state of Matan Torah? What the Eibusher taught us at Yeshiva. I finally chapped it at Matan Torah. But he gave it to me back then. Said the chefetzer was all given to me. I just didn't get it yet. I didn't taste it yet. So, but it has to have the taste. Otherwise, again, the mashal is the teacher giving over an idea that's not the real idea. The student can understand it, but it's not the real idea. So then what did he give him? Right? He has to give him the real, he has to give him the idea, mamish, that he's interested in teaching. Okay, just has to figure out how to clothe that in a way that the student can get it. So does the student get he gets a certain taste, obviously. Does he get the whole taste of the idea? No. But what's hidden in that idea? The whole taste. It's all there. It just takes the student time. So relatively intellect, it can take up to 40 years. By Mysticism, Mitzrayim, we were on the fast track. It was a fast charger. We got it in 49 days. Afal PK, nevertheless, can men yetze sein achilas matzah, right? We can be yetze achilas matzah, nar mit lechem oni, only with lechem oni, and nit mit matzah shira, not with matzah shira. Right? Meaning, you're going to say, well, hold on. If I'm saying that matzah really, the etzem is about tam, it's just that the tam is at first hidden and then comes into a state of revelation. So then let there be a real tam in matzah. Let matzah shira work. Matzah with real taste. Because after all, what do we say about matzah? The matzah represents no taste. The taste of matzah is no taste. Let it have a real taste. Because it's ultimately about tam, isn't it? No. Das heißt, as der tam, what is the taste of matzah? Der tam, was is faran, und muss sein in der matzah, the taste that is and must be in the matzah, is durch oistam matzah, is dafka the taste of matzah itself, meaning the non-taste of matzah. What does that represent? So that's what the Rebbe explains now. Aber nit kein Geschmack v'tainug vos kumt mitzad epis vos is nit matzah. There can't be a geschmack, geschmack and tainug, the same word. Right? It can't be a pleasure, vos kumt, that comes, mitzad epis vos is nit, from something that is nit matzah. What's that? Either tam from matzah shir, the tam matzah shir from the apple juice that you made the matzah with. So what's that in Avodah? What's tam matzah in Avodah? So the matzah has to have the time of matzah because matzah is what geula is all about, right? I don't taste it. Why? Because matzah represents that aspect of geula that comes from above that I might not yet taste. But what has to be in that matzah? The fullest expression of the geula. So the matzah itself, the chefza, has to have a tam of matzah. That's what the Rebbe said. It said the gavra, there's no tam. It said the chefza, there's tam, because the matzah represents the fullest expression of geula. I just haven't pulled it out of the matzah yet. When wie das spiegelt sich ab in Avodas Adam, how is this expressed in Avodas Adam? Mind is, what does it mean? Tam matzah. What's the taste of matzah? Is the geschmack in Kabbalah soul. It's the pleasure a person gets mitzad Kabbalah soul. Because what's matzah? Matzah is Kabbalah soul. There's no taste. What does that mean? There's no intellect. Right? There's no intellectual understanding. Right? What's Kabbalah soul? Kabbalah we learned in Leisa Meshakela. Kabbalah soul is that I'm doing this even though it might not be a function of my ratzon, my seichel, my ava, my yira. It has nothing to do with me. Why am I doing it? The Eibishter wants it. It's the Eibishter's thing. Right? Now, that's the ultimate expression in Kabbalah soul. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be an expression of ava and yira. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't become the expression of my ratzon and my seichel. Okay, that should, absolutely. My ratzon should be one with the Eibishter's ratzon. That's true. Okay, but what's Kabbalah soul, which is Reishis of Veda Vikata V'Shosha? What's the source of it all? The source of it all is a point where a person realizes this isn't about me, it's about the Eibishter. The Kabbalah soul of doing this not mitzad my own tam, not even mitzad my own geshmak. Certainly my tam, my intellectual tam, but also not mitzad my own geshmak. Why am I doing this? Because the Eibishter wants it done, Kabbalah soul. And that itself is a geshmak. The geschmack of Kabbalah soul is a moshel. I heard this moshel in the name of Rav Zalman Gopin, even though I said it to someone and they said that the source of the moshel is actually the Chofetz Chaim. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it certainly could be. The Chofetz Chaim is definitely a holy Jew. But the moshel of the geschmack of Kabbalah soul. So Kabbalah soul is when a person's doing what they're doing, not mitzad their own intellect, not mitzad their own emotions. They're doing it because it has to get done. Okay, so there's a certain, obviously there's a tremendous bittul in that, right? Because I'm doing it not mitzad me, I'm doing it mitzad someone else. Okay, so in this case, obviously the Eibishter. Okay, but what if someone, so the king asked me to schlep something up the hill. So he gave me 50 pounds of rocks. And I'm schlepping the 50 pounds of rocks up the hill. So it's very hard work. I'm sweating, my back hurts, my legs hurt. It's very hard work, working extremely hard, completely focused on getting this 50 pounds of rocks up the hill. And it might not even be a particularly enjoyable situation, right? It might be even to a certain degree somewhat painful, right? Because these rocks are heavy and my back hurts and my legs hurt. And I can't move my arm away from the rocks to wipe the sweat out of my eyes, and so my eyes are stinging a little. Okay, it's hard work. It's much hard work. Okay, fine. So I carry the 50 pounds of rocks up the hill and drop them at the top of the hill. So that's one expression of Kabbalah soul. But there's another expression of Kabbalah soul. And that's what? The king asked me to take 50 pounds of diamonds up the hill. So my legs hurt, my back hurts, the schwitz is still getting in my eyes, but I'm having a very good time. Because I'm carrying 50 pounds of diamonds. And diamonds are worth something. Right? Okay, so the geschmack of Kabbalah soul is realizing that even though it might be hard work sometimes to do mitzvahs, and it might be that I have to move myself out of the way because it's not yet, hopefully it will, but it's not yet resonating in my ratzon and in my seichel and in my ava and in my yira. I'm not there yet, but you can still enjoy doing it because the Eibishter wants it done. Why? Because it's diamonds. I'm schlepping diamonds up the hill. Right? And that's matzah. Matzah is the geschmack of Kabbalah soul. The geschmack in doing what the Eibishter wants because the Eibishter wants it. Not because it resonates in me and it's an expression of me and I feel so holy and I feel so uplifted. That can all be. But ultimately, why is the person doing this? He's doing this because the Eibishter said eat matzah. So we eat matzah. Nit mitzad das. It's not mitzad das. It's not mitzad my intellectual understanding, my appreciation of the beauty of it all. Nar lechem haini, but rather lechem haini. And what do we say? Ein ani ela b'das. There's no das. What is there? Kabbalah soul. That's matzah. Matzah is the ultimate in Kabbalah soul. Das is nit der Geschmack, was kommt from Seichel oder Midas. This is not the Geschmack that comes from Seichel or Midas. It's not a Geschmack that's coming from my intellectual understanding or my emotional connection. Was they bring in Tam und Hano, right? That they bring a taste and a pleasure. No, rather, sein Kabbalah soul is by him with the Geschmack. He enjoys doing what the Eibishter asks to do because the Eibishter asks to do it, and he gets a Geschmack from Kabbalah soul. That's matzah. And interesting enough, that's the beginning of Avodah, which is Pesach. Pesach is the beginning of it all. We haven't reached the level of internalization yet with matzah. I haven't internalized it all. It's not my ava and my yira and my ratzon and my seichel. I haven't brought it all down into that place. It should get down into that place. I should love the Eibishter and should come to an understanding as to why all of this is real and good and positive, and I should want to do it. But where does it all start? It all starts, and my wanting to do it is going to be a proper wanting to do it, and my intellectual understanding is going to be a proper intellectual understanding if the basis of it all is the bittul and Kabbalah soul of matzah. Why are you doing this? Eibishter will. Eibishter wants it done. He likes it. I don't know. Why does he like it? I don't know. It's not my business. Why he likes it. He likes us eating matzah. And certainly the Kabbalah soul is putting those last pieces in your mouth, that afikomen, where there's no more room for anything. You're just sort of stuffing them in there and you swallow and they don't go anywhere. There's just nowhere to go. Right? You're just full and there's just nowhere to go. Okay, just keep putting it in there until you get to the kazayas. To make any sense, you ate a lot of matzah. What makes sense? What's matzah got to do with making sense? Matzah's got to do with doing what the Eibishter wants because the Eibishter likes it. Okay? And that's the ultimate in Geula. Real Geula is that. Real Geula starts with that level of being able to get out of myself because I'm getting out of my own limitations. Because once I'm a Kabbalah Zolnik, I have to stay a Kabbalah Zolnis with all the love and all the fear and all the rutzin and all the seichel. The person still has to be a Kabbalah Zolnik. A chassid is a Kabbalah Zolnik. Someone who does something because it has to get done. Right? That doesn't mean he doesn't enjoy it. He loves it. And he might even love it mitzad his appreciation and seichel of what this is and the fact that it's become one with his rutzah. And okay, that's fine. But the bottom line is, why is he doing it? Because the Eibishter wants it done. That's the basis of it all. Because it all starts with matzah. Right? All of our Veda starts with matzah. First thing we do, beginning of the year, beginning of Veda. Right? Beginning of the process of Geula, of redeeming ourselves. So it might be I don't understand it, but I'm still connected to it. I haven't internalized it, but I'm still connected to it. Right? Learning Rambam on Shabbos was the ultimate in Kabbalah soul. We had just gone through 613 mitzvahs. Thursday was all 248 mitzvahs aseh. Friday was 365 mitzvahs leis aseh. And then the Rambam does them all again, telling you what the mitzvahs are in each sefer in Yad HaChazaka. So you just went through 613 mitzvahs. And now you have to go through the 613 mitzvahs again in how they fit in the books of the Rambam. You just do it. Why? Because that's what it means to learn Rambam that day. Am I learning anything new? Well, okay, but now I know which book is what, but I mean, it's interesting because in Mosad Rav Kook, in their printing of the Rambam, they don't have mitzvahs and then, meaning the Rambam wrote, say first the mitzvahs, and how did he write the mitzvah? He went through 248 positive commandments, Shanemar. By each pasuk, he brings by each mitzvah, he brings the pasuk that's the source of the mitzvah. Shanemar, Shanemar, Shanemar. 613 times. Okay. So you go through that. And then the Rambam goes through, says, I'm going to divide all the Torah up into these 14 books, and these are the names of the halachas in the books, and these are the halachas these are the mitzvahs that are explained in those books. And there's this, and then he goes through each book and tells you there's this mitzvah, and he goes through 613 mitzvahs again. So Masada Rav Kook, when they printed it, they put those two together, and when the Rambam explains which mitzvahs are in which book, they say the mitzvah then shenemar. So they don't have the minyan of mitzvahs before. Okay, so that makes sense. That's not what the Rambam did. So when you're learning Rambam, you can't do that. You're learning Rambam. It's interesting because the Rebbe always learns Rambam out of the Masada Rav Kook Rambam, the Rambam Lam. Whenever we saw the Rebbe learning Rambam, it was always out of that book. So I don't know what the Rebbe did. The first 3 days, how it all worked out. Well, day 2, 3, and 4. Day 1 is the Hagdama. Day 2 is Mitzvah Saseh. Day 3 is Mitzvah Lei Saseh. Day 4 is all of the mitzvahs as they appear in each book, and then Sefer Mat. So now the Rebbe did day 2, 3, 4. How he divided that up, because in the book that the Rebbe is learning from, it's not there that way. So you have to find a different Rambam to learn from. But so that makes sense to do it their way, but it's not Kabbalah Soul. The Kabbalah Soul is that Shabbos everybody was complaining about. Everybody's talking about, you finished Rambam yesterday? No, I'm in Sefer Avodah. Oh, that's not bad. You made it to Avodah, yeah. Pashut Kabbalah is old. It's just you're reading this because that's the minion of learning Rambam today, is to just read this. Just finished reading this. Read it again. Well, it's not bad for us. Okay.